Hey everyone, welcome back to the Florida Rum Explorer. It's a beautiful day here in Central Florida. One of those days that you just want to enjoy a nice, refreshing cocktail. So I'm going to return to making some of the classic cocktails from the olden days. We're going to do the Jet Pilot, which is the younger brother of the Test Pilot. Maybe younger, but it packs a hell of a lot more of a punch. So stick around. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Florida Rum Explorer. I'm Brian, and today, like I said in our little intro, we're going to talk about the Jet Pilot. I call it the younger brother to the Test Pilot, and there's a very good reason for that. The Test Pilot was developed by Don Beach circa 1941. The Test Pilot, when back in the mid-century, mid-20th century, pilots, jet pilots, test pilots were all very, very manly men, the ones that people looked up to. So the Jet Pilot was the natural evolution of the Test Pilot. Wasn't developed by Don Beach himself, but it was developed in the Luau restaurant, or at least the recipe I'm going to be doing was from the Luau restaurant in Beverly Hills around 1958. It's really just a Test Pilot with a few added extra ingredients to it. Very similar to a zombie, but not quite. It is, another one of those ones that uses grapefruit juice, uses falernum, a little bit of absinthe, which I'm not a big fan of, but I'm going to use it anyway because that's correct for the recipe. But it's one of those ones. It's a standard in tiki canon. Most people don't know about. I mean, it certainly wasn't a type of drink people would be ordering in the '80s unless they went to a specific tiki restaurant. But it's a good one. I think you'll enjoy it. So let's jump right into it. So, how do you make a Jet Pilot? Well, it's a long list of ingredients. As a Don Beach type of based recipe would go. Like I said, this isn't Don's recipe entirely, but it's based on his Test Pilot. So we're going to take our shaker. Now the recipe actually calls for this to be a blended drink. I didn't feel like digging out my blender, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a shaker, and I'm going to shake it in the shaker, and then I'm going to pour it over crushed ice. I think it has the same effect as doing the blender. Also, the blender tends to dilute things a little too much, for my opinion. So how do you start it off? Well, we're going to take sorry about that. We're going to take 1 ounce lime juice. So make sure you measure everything. These type of recipes half an ounce of lime juice. These recipes are formulated with specific measurements. So make sure you measure everything. So that's half an ounce of lime juice. Then we're going to take half an ounce of grapefruit juice. That goes right in there. And now, one of my favorite ingredients of all time, and we talked about this before in this channel, cinnamon syrup. We are going to do a half an ounce of cinnamon syrup. And again, to make cinnamon syrup, you don't need to buy it. You just need to make up a batch of simple syrup, drop 2 or 3 cinnamon sticks in the hot liquid after you've turned it off, and let it steep in there for a couple hours. Cinnamon syrup. So that's a half an ounce of cinnamon syrup. Now we go over to falernum, an unusual ingredient in this day and age. Most people don't even know what it is. If you go into a liquor store like I did at one point and ask for, hey, do you guys have any falernum? You get a really weird look. Also, this stuff was near impossible to find during the height of the pandemic. So I ended up having to I bought 3 bottles online and have it shipped to my house. Since then, it's showing up back in stores, but I'm still working through the supply I have. So half an ounce of falernum. That goes in there. Now we're going to take 1 ounce, of Jamaican rum. Again, make sure you use exact measurements. 1 ounce of Jamaican rum. It's kind of a potent drink. You've got 3 rums in here. Then we're going to take 3/4 of an ounce. The recipe calls for Jamaican Gold rum. I forgot to pick some up, so I'm gonna use Cruise and Silver today. What did we say there? 3/4 of an ounce. I don't think we have to worry about the fact that we don't have Jamaican Gold there, or actually Puerto Rican Gold is what it calls for. But I think we'll do just fine. So we put in our Jamaican rum, we put in our light rum. Now we're going to do 3/4 of an ounce of 151 Hamilton rum. Again, very potent stuff, and this stuff is flammable, so don't do this near an open flame. There you go. Our 151's in there. Now it calls for 1 dash of Angostura bitters. Boop. There you go. Actually, I got 2 dashes in there. You can't really control that. And then, my least favorite ingredient, absinthe. I am not a fan of licorice. That whole anise flavor, I don't care for it. But the recipe calls for it. Typically, when I'm making this for myself, I would leave it out. But since we're making this video for the channel, I'm going to do it correct to the recipe. So 1 scant teaspoon, 1/8 scant teaspoon of absinthe. It says 6 drops, but that really works out to be 1/8 of a teaspoon. And you can smell that licorice flavor immediately. It's so strong. Alright, so we are now going to cap it off. Give it a couple of shakes. I'm knocking everything over today, aren't I? Alright, so that is shaken enough. And just pour it into your glass. In order so you can see the glass better. I'll move it over here so you can see the glass better. So you can see the color. It's kind of almost a honey gold color. Oh man, you can smell the absinthe. It is strong in there. I'm always amazed, just 1/8 of a teaspoon, how strong this stuff is. But nice golden color. Very good. You really get the grapefruit for one thing. Then it kind of migrates over to the cinnamon syrup flavor. You definitely get the licorice from the absinthe in there. The funny thing is, with all those rums in there, I don't think they're that strong of a flavor. Some people may disagree with you. Some people might go, oh my God, it's so alcohol forward. I'm not getting that. I'm getting the juices, I'm getting the syrups, definitely getting the absinthe. So there you go, from 1958, from the Luau restaurant in Beverly Hills, the test pilot. I'm sorry, not the test pilot, the jet pilot. Like I said, the baby brother, or the younger brother to the test pilot. Around that era, you know, when things started moving over from jet aircraft to astronauts, you started having the space pilot, you had the astronaut. Maybe one of these days we'll play with some of those recipes too. But so this is a good one for your tiki repertoire. If you want to ever host a tiki cocktail party, this is a good one to have for people. Again, you know, it's really a test pilot with 3 extra ingredients, sort of like a zombie, but not quite. But it's a good one, and I highly recommend it. Oh, and by the way, the first place I ever had one of these was at a place in Fort Lauderdale called Mai Kai, about 5 years ago. Great place. You know, it's kind of those old kitschy tiki restaurant club type of places. It was damaged in a hurricane a few years ago. It's been closed for several years, but the rumor is that it is going to open up again pretty soon. They got new investors. They had to do all their repairs. I'm looking forward to it opening, and if it does, we may have to do an on-the-road episode there. So, the jet pilot. Enjoy, and until next time, everyone, take care.